Hello, my name is Robbie Fitzwater. I own and operate Marketing Rhythm. We help e-commerce businesses with retention marketing, meaning a lot of email marketing, a lot of SMS marketing. Um, and one of the questions we get asked on a very, very frequent basis is, how much money should I be making through email? And while that number is, again, a little bit hard to pin down in some cases, it's becoming a lot easier to narrow in on exactly like where your business should be, how you should be thinking about it, and then how you should um, actively get to a higher and higher rate. And this is one of the problems we help businesses solve all the time. So figured we'd kind of walk you through our ideas, how we think about it, and then how all of that marketing kind of plays together, and how you can be approaching it yourself. So basically thinking about like how much revenue should I be generating through email. We like to think of like for most of our clients and like most groups we're working with, typically we want to be in that like basically a 30 to 45% range. So if 30 to 45% of your revenue is coming through email, that's generally going to be where you have a really nice sweet spot where you're generating revenue quickly, you're using automations effectively enough to drive a consistent pipeline of consistent stable revenue, but you're also able to monetize that your audience in a way that's going to be valuable long term. And hopefully that means you're getting repeat customers back in the door over and over and over, and hopefully not needing to discount based on margin. Basically, when you can drive that consistent process is when you're building automations through email flows and campaigns. This is where you start to get a really good feel of exactly what level of revenue we're going to be at, and then you can start to make changes and adjustments to move that forward, whether it's like increasing your number of automations, improving the segmentation of your email so that your content reaches their audience in a more powerful way. But basically, we want to be driving more and more revenue all the time and improving that incremental revenue over the course of that customer lifecycle, but also through the way that you're just approaching the strategy behind it in general. So if you're wondering like, hey, what is this revenue? What's the potential revenue I could be looking at look like? We also have like a really cool tool, that revenue calculator. If you just go to this link and download it from there, you can use it and see kind of what your baseline level of revenue is at and kind of where it can be. Just recommend downloading that or just like or making a copy of that for yourself, and you can just have some fun with it. But basically, when we're thinking about this is, hey, we have a lot of different ways we can kind of grow a business. And I always try and take this back to like those like three growth multipliers I talk about all the time of increasing the number of customers, increasing your average order value, or increasing the number of purchases or lifetime value. If we're thinking about where our email is impacting those goals, is number two and three is where things are really, really strong. We can impact number one, but when we're impacting number one, that's typically through the welcome sequence, and that's typically through just like the way we can onboard customers. The way we do this is that again, that flywheel that kind of creates number two and three is through our automations and our campaigns. Again, we always think of like, hey, this is just a really underutilized resource because a lot of businesses don't think about the retention aspect of the business and the revenue generated through retention, because again, everybody's focused on ROAS and again, getting more bodies in the door, getting more customers through the door. And I've said this before, but like if you're really good at driving effective acquisition, but not great at driving retention, you have really basically like an e-commerce or a glorified vending machine where there's no real loyalty and no real structure around like getting people back in the door. If you can do that, that offers a differentiated opportunity for your business, and kind of that's where we like to see those again the email revenue really playing a large role. So from the automations perspective, we like to think about like email automations like where early on and kind of through that life cycle, we'd like this to be from about like 10 to 20%. That's kind of that 10 to 20% of e-commerce revenue is kind of that sweet spot for most stores, because again, you're getting people in the door, but also you're using those as a way of driving consistent incremental revenue month after month, year after year. And that really kind of serves as a great foundation for a lot of the work you're doing, where you can really depend on that revenue coming through based on the number of people you're able to bring back in and the number of people you're able to engage and how effectively you are able to engage them when they're in the store. And these are basically like, again, through automations that bring people back at different life stages and through your customer journey. And then the more relevant and engaging your content can be, or the more relevant and engaging the way you reach out to them can be, the more valuable it's going to be for them. Also, because these are only triggered based on their behavior, they're likely going to have a lot more contextual relevance for them. So naturally, a little bit better performance overall. Again, like I said, these build up over time. Again, you can't go out with like 20 new automations that work great. Like these are this is kind of that like making the donuts process where it's not super sexy and exciting early on, but you'll thank yourself later. It's kind of like your 401k. You thank yourself when you're older, but that compound interest really helps. But where this is really helpful is becoming a way that you can kind of consistently improve that incremental revenue month over month. And when you're introducing these, like we have clients that have like upwards of like 25 automations running at any given time based on different stages of their customer journey and different use cases. But basically, when we're introducing these, we like to prioritize them based on the revenue they're going to drive and the impact they're going to have on the business. So we're trying to line these up where we're introducing the profitable value added automations early and then getting to some of the others. And we may even be reworking some of them and experimenting with these. So any one of these automations maybe have 2 or 3 experiments going on at any given time. So again, headlines, body content, delays. There's lots of different things we can do to experiment on and improve and tweak these. So typically, like this is kind of I've called it like your digital petri dish, where you can kind of experiment and grow. But you should be able to grow that baseline level where you're getting that incremental revenue increase month over month. And once you kind of have it to a certain stage, it's a really nice place that you can kind of like expect that. It's kind of, again, intuitive because it's really nice. And that month over month revenue really helps. One of the things we report with clients is like, hey, how much revenue did your automations drive every month? And then also how much revenue did each of those individual automations drive on a monthly basis? Like, so if we see suddenly a giant spike or a giant drop, like we can also like, it helps us raise red flag when we see like something doesn't go right, or something that may be buggy, where we can go in and just fix it. And depending on your business type and stage, like this is where like, hey, if you have multiple different product categories you serve, or you have a broad product assortment as opposed to a narrow one, this may be a larger percentage because you may be drawing people back in through different means. But this is typically one of the stronger areas where you can consistently think about that month over month over month over month growth, where it's a really great asset you're building, and it's again compounds over time. So the second category, so we have automations and then we have campaigns. Campaigns are typically what people think about when they think about email marketing. Again, we love campaigns too. Like I don't want to like again undervalue those, but those are something that again, like automations are really kind of the area where we think is most underutilized for e-commerce businesses because again, it's misunderstood, it seems more complicated than it really is. And we're just always trying to like unpack like, hey, this is not as intimidating as it seems. Like we just want to like get that customer journey right, and it's going to do its work for itself. But basically, campaign emails or SMS messages. Also, we can use SMS messaging through our automations too. Those really work well when we're lining it up with specific behaviors that are time sensitive. Again, when you can make somebody's Apple Watch vibrate, like that's kind of a unique opportunity. But this is where we should be seeing about 15 to 25% of our total e-commerce revenue coming from. So this may vary from month to month a lot more drastically than our automations, where our automations may have some fluctuation. Like this is where we're going to see larger swings. So larger swings like in November. So can anybody guess why November is probably going to be a bigger swing or a bigger, more profitable month for us for e-commerce through email? Yeah, ding, 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 Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and like the shopping holiday, that's typically where people think about, like, again, a large pop in revenue. So again, expecting that and thinking that, hey, there's going to be a little bit more volatility and swings here. But what we really work to do here is bring a level of consistency through weekly hub content and consistency through consistent email sending. It gives us a lot less variability in terms of revenue coming from those emails. And then we have a little bit more predictability in terms of like, hey, how do we again drive this on a consistent basis, and also understands how do we can get strategic around like how do we incorporate different sales peaks at different times of the year. So like Amazon Prime has Prime Day, so they can incorporate a sales peak in the middle of the summer. That gives them a lot of opportunity because again they drive a higher volume and can capture more revenue over time. But it's just kind of priming your audience to be able to be ready for that. So again, building sales peaks in the year can typically capture a little bit more top line revenue total. This is also where having a pipeline of content really helps, because again, you're sharing helpful value-added content that adds value beyond the transaction and keeps your audience engaged. Again, we talked about like earning attention is only trumped by maintaining attention in terms of difficulty. So again, this allows you to maintain attention without sacrificing margin and gives you a great, again, room for growth. And then focusing on your high value segments is typically one of the ways you can, again, maximize this. So your high value segments are the ones that are going to be driving the most value. Again, if this is use case for you, again, your gift givers drive revenue one time a year, where your people purchasing for themselves drive revenue on a consistent basis. Focus on your consistent revenue, and your like, again, people that may be driving that repeat purchase or that, again, higher average order value, because that's going to be the most effective use of your energy and time, where a gift giver may not be as engaged at a high level or consistently. This is where you can, again, not starve your stallions and feed your ponies. Prioritize your best audiences, prioritize those high revenue generating audiences, and that's where this will be most successful. So where do these overlap? So this is where another question we get all the time is like, where do these overlap? So when we think about this in terms of like our e-commerce pie, like this works really well because like, hey, automations and campaigns are kind of like BFFs, where they work together and they kind of serve like two different pillars of our three-pillar email marketing ecosystem, where campaigns may bring people back to your site. The automations are probably going to be what they gets them back to the site the second time and the third time. So like say somebody opens the campaign, they go to a product page, they browse, they do whatever they want to, and they leave, they bounce. Basically what our automations do is they kind of gets our hooks in where we can actually bring people back in on it after that. So like they may get an SMS 30 minutes later, they may get an email an hour and a half later, where we have those nice follow-ups to hopefully bring them back in the store. And because those work so well together, it kind of like creates that behavior where we have multiple different levers we can pull to get people back in the store, engaged, and hopefully through to that end purchase. But like the way these function really complement and supplement each other well, and it's basically just giving different ways to bring people back in. You can also think about it's like an abandoned cart, like when somebody abandons their cart, like we're starting to bring them back in. So it's just a way of, again, pulling them back in. And so that's how a lot of times the automations and the campaigns really complement each other. When you can like have some of those campaigns or automations like have some relevant content in them too, like that's even a bigger win too. So you want to think about how these are going to fit into that whole entirety of the customer experience, and that's where it's important. So another question is, again, what percentage of our revenue should be from email? And we say like up to 45%, and up to 45% set means up to a certain point, this is how much money we're going to be driving through email. Once we get above that percentage, we really need to be thinking about what we're doing on the acquisition side. This is where hey guys, like we would love to help you more. We're at a certain place where like you're gonna keep rocking and rolling, but right now you need to focus on your acquisition efforts before you can get much more optimized on the retention side, because again, that the top of the funnel isn't filling fast enough. And if we're going to be investing more money at the bottom of the funnel, investing more activity, we can optimize all day and we can minimize churn in our audience. But if we're not being able to bring people in the top of the funnel in a systematic, recurring way, then that's not going to be the most, like, I'm just going to be honest, like email is not going to be the most valuable use of your resources once you have a good email system in place. So that's where we're like thinking about, hey, what does your marketing stool look like? And this gives you that stronger foundation of revenue that you can depend on and predictably expect, where email, again, that up to 45%, if that goes above 45%, you probably need to get some work done on your paid side, and you also probably need to get some work done on your organic side. Typically, like most groups are going to be thinking all paid all the time, where again, that's not necessarily a long-term strategy and a long-term thinking. Getting your organic up and running too is really important, but all of these really work together and complement each other, because if for whatever reason, like you screwed up your Google ads or you got kicked out of Facebook ads, you still have your organic and email driving revenue. So that's going to give you that nice, more stable foundation and a more anti-fragile, basically, ecosystem that you're not going to be as worried about, again, one of those falling flat. Because if you only had like email and paid, then you kind of have a tough situation because if paid falls off, you only have email, and then once you're in only in email, you're not bringing people in the door. So if you could retain 90% of your customers for month over month over month, you're still going to have some degradation. Nobody's going to be able to buy that consistently. So thinking about that in terms of like, hey, how does this fit into the broader marketing picture? And how do we look at this in terms of like, how much money should we be driving? Do we want to be driving? And then what's going to be profitable and valuable for our business? So if we're driving too much revenue through email, we may want to reinvest some of those dollars in other areas of marketing so we can have a more stable infrastructure for growth and more stable system for expanding our business. So again, as leading marketing for a large e-commerce in the past, like I always try to think about this from like the whole big picture. It's supposed to just the email vertical, but that's a really important piece that I want to make sure it doesn't get overlooked, because if you get too dependent on one channel, it becomes kind of a tenuous situation. And again, some months may be higher, like hopefully your email revenue is going to be higher as a percentage in like a November, where you're bringing people in for another purchase. You're not acquiring new customers during that time because it's an absolute bloodbath and it's really expensive. So thinking about that in terms of like, hey, like we're probably not bringing people in that time of the year. We're probably monetizing them at that time of the year. So in closing, again, I can go on for days about this, but basically thinking about email, this is probably your strongest retention channel in terms of how much revenue it's going to be driving. So when we're thinking about this, like we have those three ways to grow a business. We can increase the number of customers, we can increase the average order value, and we can increase the lifetime value. If we can really optimize number two and number three for this is a really big win for most businesses because they don't always focus on those. And that's where, again, this is going to be driving a strong amount of revenue. It doesn't have an acquisition cost associated with it. So for so many businesses, like this is your most profitable revenue you're coming in, and email should ideally be your most profitable channel as a whole. So that's kind of how you can kind of like break this down or think about this. Some businesses that are younger, like you may have a lot more customers coming in through, again, a welcome sequence where you may have a little bit overinflated welcome in terms of like new customer acquisition. But also if you're a little bit more established and have a good recurring customer base, you should be in a place where you can drive a good high percentage without being too overly dependent on email as a channel. And I don't want to say like email is like the only like arrow in your quiver. You want to be using these how they need to be used and using those tools effectively. But that's where we think like, hey, email, think about 30 to 45% of your revenue. And again, like I said, we even have a cool tool that we can look at different businesses differently. So if you have multiple products, you may be able to drive a higher percentage of that from your business. If you only have like one product, it's like your go-to, you may not be able to drive as high a percentage because you're gonna have to work to acquire because you may not have a natural repurchase rate. But those are all things to think about when you're thinking about, hey, how much revenue should I be driving through email? And if you guys have questions on this, let us know. We love answering questions. We love talking shop on this. So yeah. And if you're bored, subscribe. You're probably going to get more of this, probably more of me ranting in front of a whiteboard, but there's a lot worse problems in life. So hope you're having a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.